Professor Jeremy Siegel was on CNBC for a long time on Friday, being highly critical of the Fed, and he was correctly criticizing the Fed for being too loose in the face of too much inflation in 2021. But he wasn't being nearly critical enough when it comes to the Fed's inflationary monetary policies, which really date all the way back to 1998 and the long-term capital management bailout. That's when the Fed really started printing money, and then it printed even more money in advance of Y2K, and then even more money after the NASDAQ bubble popped in 2000, and even more money after the real estate bubble popped in 2008. So it's not just 1 year of excess money printing. The Fed has been too loose for almost 25 years, flooding the economy with cheap money. According to Professor Siegel, if the Fed had simply started hiking interest rates sooner, rather than claiming inflation was transitory, or ended quantitative easing sooner rather than later, then we wouldn't be having these problems. The fact of the matter is, the reason that Powell didn't act sooner is because he didn't want to create a problem by fighting inflation, because at that time, inflation wasn't a problem. Well, now that inflation is a problem, well, there's no reason for the Fed not to fight it. They didn't want to fight it in 2021 because it would have created a problem for the economy. Because now the inflation that they didn't want to fight, because doing so would have created a problem, has itself become the problem. And so they got a problem either way. They're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. So that's why they're fighting inflation now. But even if they had chosen to fight it earlier, before it got this out of hand, they still would have created a crisis, because it's not just being too loose for a year. Again, it's 25 years of reckless money printing, of malinvestments and misallocations of resources. This is a gigantic credit bubble. We just added even more fuel to that bubble in the last year. So we just ended the mania with a more spectacular blow off top. But there was no way around this. There was no correct decision that the Fed could have made in 2021. So all they did is make the only decision that would allow them to postpone the pain for a little longer. They had no idea how much time they were buying by being that reckless, but they didn't care. Because again, the name of the game for the Fed is always don't create a problem, even if it solves a bigger problem. Wait for that bigger problem to become a crisis. That's why I wrote the book, The Real Crash, America's Coming Bankruptcy, How to Save Yourself and Your Country, because I knew that the 2008 crash that I predicted in my original book that came out in 2007, Crash Proof, How to Profit from the Coming Economic Collapse, I knew the real crash hadn't happened because it was postponed by the reckless monetary policy pursued by the Federal Reserve in the aftermath of that 2008 financial crisis. Well, the real crash is the one we're headed for right now. And we were going to have that crash regardless of the mistakes the Fed made in 2021. We were going to have it for all the mistakes it made, not just going back to 2008, but going all the way back to 1998.